Welcome to the Planners on Purpose podcast. I'm Naomi Tucker, your host, and welcome to a place where event professionals are empowered to stress less, to live more by living their lives purposefully, intentionally, lives that they love, careers that they love. And it's hard to be in your career where there can be a lot of stress and struggle around communicating your wants, your needs, and even expectations to your leaders, to your customers. And that's why I'm super excited about the conversation today with Hilary Blair, who's the CEO at Articulate. She is also a CSP, which is a certified speaking professional. She's a speaker, leadership coach, and a group facilitator. She weaves her professional acting experience into programs for corporate teams, individuals to elevate presence, communication, and connection. She's also a certified conversational intelligence and culture talk and trained in organizational relationship systems coach. So I love all of that. She provides coaching from a holistic systems perspective. So I'm super excited for this conversation. And Hillary, welcome to the Planners on Purpose podcast. Glad to have you here.
Delighted. Absolutely delighted. Yes.
Perfect. So I know I gave everyone your stats and your high level creds and your flowers for all of the amazing things that you have done. However, I would love for you to just tell us how you weaved this intricate tapestry of skill sets like acting and group facilitation. How did you actually get to where you are right now?
I'm a drama teacher. So I am a drama teacher, trained as a drama teacher. I'm trained as an actor. And what's been interesting is that I thought I would stay in the arts for art's sake world. I was focused there until a businesswoman met me. And she is the one who saw me performing in a show, seeing the communication that was happening in that show, and suggested that I work with business people. She said, those techniques, those skills, that focus is what we need for business owners, for entrepreneurs, for the whole network of people working in the business world, bringing that arts focus. Otherwise, I would still be trucking along in the lane of arts for art's sake. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. And it's such a unique skill set you don't really see at all that acting, and I'm pretty sure it's become very useful in your facilitation.
Yeah.
How do you actually put it all together in your
I
group
You
facilitation?
know, I still do voiceovers. So I'm big into the
Mhm.
voice and how it impacts our connection and our communication. So I still do voiceovers in that world. Keep my foot in there, keep that going. And I speak, so that's some of the acting. And how it all comes
Okay.
together with the specifically with the facilitation is that focus on the unique aspects of each individual coming together to move an idea forward, a project forward, to dive in and explore new ideas, to dive in and figure out what we did and what we can do to make it work more efficiently. That is the whole world of theater. That's bringing a diverse group of people together, not just the actors. The actors are diverse as well. It's also all the experts coming in to work together. You have, if you're doing a musical, you have the choreographer, you have the voice coach, you have the singing coach, you have the musical director. You have so many different people, the stage manager, all the tech people. That idea of connecting many different skills and many different individual personalities and needs in order to serve the one
Mhm.
success of moving forward, kind of what we're all about. Similar to sports, right? It is a similar thing, and sometimes we're more connected to sports, some of us. But that theater
Mhm.
idea has fired me up, connected me. The facilitation in particular, I focused on for a program that I was part of for 11 years. So I was in it for 4 years, and then I helped co-direct it for 7 more years, and it was
Mhm.
in high schools, specifically facilitating conversations around controversial issues without a right or wrong. So we weren't going in and saying, "We want you to be thinking this." We actually brought up tricky topics. We would bring scenes from plays that surfaced it, and then we'd debate the issues from the character's perspective and get everybody up and facilitate the room. And there was heat going on, and then there were people who wouldn't speak, and all of that idea. And you can think of any tricky topic that comes up in most elections, and those are the topics we were diving into without right or wrong,
Mhm.
getting both sides of the topics. that is where I learned 5 classes a day, 5 days a week for the whole fall, going in with 3 people facilitating those conversations with a
Hmm.
room full of people who aren't always asked what they think, which is similar to the workspace, right? Sometimes they're just supposed
Right.
to do what they're supposed to do, and we're saying, "Oh, interesting, we're in a high school classroom, how do we get them to voice their opinions?" Interestingly, then the A students. The A students were trying to suss us out and figure out what answer they were supposed to be giving us, and then the students who often end up in detention or trouble were throwing their ideas at us. That's what we wanted, right? So, the A students took longer to get to that place of sharing what they actually thought about something, and the
Mm,
other students thought they were gonna be causing trouble by doing it, and we're like, "No, that's it." So translating those skills of navigating all those personalities, getting voices heard into the workplace, into helping others use those skills and own the awkward and hold space for the individuality, for the different way we communicate, for not putting up walls, staying in relationship, staying open, getting curious. I'm not sure I understood
mhm.
exactly what you mean. What do you mean by that? Tell me more. Rephrase it. Let me hear. Like all of that, you hone that in a high school classroom. And that's where I came out of my own shy, polite way of running a workshop because 'cause I'd already been teaching for decades by then, right? But I was like, "Wait a minute. They want relationship. They want me to be involved." And I had an amazing mentor who ran the program, and he kept challenging us. Bring it real, be authentic, connect with them. Don't do whatever that thing is you're doing. Be present with them. So being present, owning my
Yeah.
emotional reaction, being really transparent about what's going on with me, holding space. Someone shuts down. I go, I'm going to be right here. I'm going to hang out, wait for you, which is respectful instead of what I
Mm,
thought was respectful, which is to, oh, that's all right. Don't worry about it. That's fine. Let me disappear. Right. Because we think that is what we're trained as being polite and nice is what's expected. So long way of sharing that sandbox of playing year after year and practicing brought me to an understanding of the awkwardness of being in relationship and owning those conversations to really be respectful and really facilitate conversations to move things forward. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I love that you mentioned the diversity or just bringing different minds, different thoughts, different ideas to the table. And that is usually what allows teams to thrive. So
Yes.
you said, hey, within the world that you were in, it was very important. It does translate to the workplace. We do need all of these different
Yeah.
thought processes in order to have a conversation about whatever it is we're having a conversation with. And sometimes it can be one sided.
Yeah.
So it's nice to say, hey, my opinion matters, or the opinions of everyone here matters. How can we bring that up in a way to really give respect to the conversation, but then also move it forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great thing.
Yes. Yeah, and, I love swimming in that kinda messy, uncomfortable place, not because I like being uncomfortable, but because I saw the benefits of staying present with
Mhm.
people, real conversations happened. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I when it comes to what we share here on the podcast a lot is situations of struggle and how we can just bring the joy also back to being in the event profession over the last few years. We've really gotten to a point where it's super hard right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of turbulence when it comes to how we work and how we show up. A lot of it is just because of the demands and the pressure.
Mhm.
And I would love to just talk a little bit about that on how we can
Yeah.
communicate clearly to leadership because it comes up a lot. I recently was at another event that communication came up. It was we were talking about burnout. What do you struggle with? What are some of the stressors that you all are stressing on? And a lot of it comes to the poor communication.
Yep.
How do we communicate with our leaders? How can we navigate that conversation and bring up these tough conversations with leaders and with our customers. So, do you have like guiding principles around
Yeah.
conversing
Yeah.
and to help event professionals navigate those waters?
I'm gonna toss out some tools, right? And then you help me see how they land with you knowing that
Yeah.
world so well. I think that one of the most draining experiences is not being heard and not, being able to express yourself, right? So that idea of if I'm not being heard, you're like, "Oh, they're not even there's a wall, we're not even connecting." And the other one, right, that, okay, I'm being taught to hold in what's going on. I'm supposed to not be emotional, I'm not supposed to overreact to things. So those 2 sides are draining because we don't get to be us, we don't get that energy going of who we are. So the first we have a series of tools that we use. One is sci-fi, so being self-aware, curious, and intentional for impact, right? Sci-fi. So the idea, and we talk about self-aware a lot. The thing is,
Mhm.
if we don't have the tools to deal with what we discover when we look at ourselves or look at what's going on, then we usually become self conscious. And self conscious is another wall. If we're self aware, so I'm chatting with you and I'm like, man, I'm not quite understanding that. Or maybe I'm saying, if I stay present with you and stay self aware that, oh, I'm feeling a little awkward that I didn't connect the way I thought. Ooh, I'm feeling a little awkward. I spaced out while she was speaking, right? There are all kinds of things, right? If we're self aware that those things happen, then I stay in relationship if I have
Mhm.
tools to move that conversation forward. If I'm just like, oh, well, I did everything wrong, I'm backing off. So self conscious is really different than self aware. And it's not self involved either. Self involved is the other side of it, right? So if I'm
Mm.
self-aware, then I'm like, okay, that's what's going on. That's what I'm feeling. Then I'm curious. How am I connecting? What did I miss? I just wrote about curious because we talk about curious a lot in the world of work and business and life. Teaching kids be
Yep.
curious, right? Everything's curious. And it's important that curiosity have the relationship involved. You'll hear me mention relationship all the time. Communication is about the relationship. So if my
Yeah.
curiosity is what's wrong with her, that's very different than what did I miss? How are we not connecting? If I'm curious about what's this together? What in our relationship have we not connected? What's going on? What am I part of? What she's part of? When I'm working with it's been young leaders, doesn't mean it's only young leaders.
Mhm.
One guy in particular I was joking about, he just kept going, "Oh my goodness, I'm moving to a curiosity that's more like, what's wrong?" versus how can we, right? And I have some great colleagues who explore curiosity with a major depth. And they have David Dye and Karen Hurt are amazing. And I want to mention that because they're all about curiosity. So that making sure the curious is about what can we do? How can I connect? And then to be intentional. Now I'm walking into the awkward zone. So I've been self-aware. Naomi and I are not connecting. What's happening? I'm curious. What did I miss something? Am I here? What are we saying? Why am I
Mm.
feeling heated or spaced out or whatever the things are? And then I'm intentional. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to be transparent. Whatever the
Mm.
things I decide, that's where I activate the tools. And the biggest one is owning the awkward of not necessarily feeling comfortable with the fact that I'm now admitting or journeying into conversation that's not comfortable. So owning the
Mm.
awkward and understanding that confidence and comfort are not connected. So I can be uncomfortable and confident. So if I'm self-aware, curious, and intentional for impact. And I have discovered that it's the little things that are a big deal. If I'm aware
Yeah.
of the language that I'm using in my head or the use of the words out that may have misguided us, that may misguide me in my head, it's the little things that I need to be
Mhm.
aware of. So I added in there, so sci-fi and then transparency. Hey,
Mm.
I'm feeling like we misconnected. We are not communicating. So transparent. I can also be transparent about me. I'm feeling a little heated and I'm recognizing that because of what you said, or I'm that kind of thing, right? Oh, except we don't want to say
Yeah.
because. I want to actually edit that. Edit. Uh, we want to make sure I'm feeling a little heated. The because is
Mm.
what throws it back on you. If I simply am transparent and own it, oh, I'm a little heated. Let's explore this a little bit more. Then I'm owning it. You put the right story on me. And
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
tool is incredibly powerful. The minute I use because, then I'm tossing it over to you to have it be in your lap instead of mine. Transparency
Yeah.
means around story, if we're in a leadership, if we're speaking with a client, if we're speaking with a vendor, right?
Mhm.
Transparency means that we can relax into understanding that we understand there's heightened or weird energy going on. If I'm not transparent, then you, because you're a human being, will be putting story on what I'm doing to try and make meaning. If I'm transparent,
Mhm.
then we can put the right story on it or closer to the right story. And if I pretend I'm not heated, if I just start pushing it down or I start doing the things that I've learned because I'm a polite and nice person, then the trust is undermined because the fake starts to come out. And even if you're not
Yeah.
sure, we're human beings. We know we're like something's going on, right? So
Yeah.
sci-fi, transparency, really, really important in order to help guide the story to build the trust. Those are some
Yeah.
tools. Yeah.
I love those tools, and what it makes me think about in terms of being curious and being in relationship is just, like, coming closer to the person
Yeah.
versus pushing away and cutting it off. So when you're doing that, it's more like, "Oh, what is she all
Yeah.
about?" type thing. It's
Yeah.
like you're distancing yourself from that person versus coming into more relationship and really being curious about what is the need that that person has, and so when it comes to the situations that I was talking
Yeah.
about, just the struggles and poor
Yeah.
communication, maybe it's just more thinking about that other person and how you can actually come in more into relationship with them and being transparent about your situation.
Right?
And I find in the workplace when people are more transparent about, we're talking about event planning, right?
Yeah.
So we're more transparent about the why
hmm
we need to have the thing done
Yeah.
instead of this needs to be to me. Customers can be a little bit more
Yeah.
amenable to your why. So I love the transparency factor and how that can play into providing relationship with the customer. Because sometimes we think, oh, if I tell them too much, they're going to be too much into my space. But it can actually
Yeah.
be quite the opposite.
Oh,
It can build trust,
yeah.
right?
That
Mhm.
counterintuitive. I think that nice and polite have guided us. Don't get rid of nice and polite. They're very important. But but we sometimes say in business relationships or other places, we need kind and honoring. That's what I learned in the high school classroom, right? Kind and honoring versus nice and polite. Nice and
Yes.
polite can shine a light on steps that separate us. And counterintuitive choices, they seem elusive, they seem hidden. It's like, "Wait a minute, what?" To what you just said. Maybe counterintuitive to say, "I'm gonna tell you why. What's going on? I'm gonna start with that, right? I'm gonna tell you exactly what's going on." Transparency. I'm gonna let you know
Mhm.
that I'm having an emotional negative, boy, putting any of those words on it, a heightened emotional reaction to something that's not ecstasy joy, right? So we're going that I'm having that. If I'm transparent, it's counterintuitive to let you know that. We feel like that's going to undermine versus build trust. That
Mhm.
counterintuitive choice, I I think when we start sorting through nice and polite, we start not seeing it as counterintuitive and seeing it as the wise way to connect. I really want to be honest with you. I want to be upfront. It's why we have those phrases like, well, I'm going to
Mhm.
be honest with you. The problem with them is, does it mean you weren't honest with me moments ago?
Right.
Right? So you're like, wait a minute. And sometimes it's a clearing, right? It's like, wait a
Mhm.
minute, let's start again. We joke about etch a sketch, like I'm gonna etch a sketch, I'm gonna start again. So
No,
some
pick it up.
right, so these phrases. When you said we have poor communication with a customer, I'm gonna level set. I think sometimes it's more amazing when we do communicate well. I think the
Mhm.
miscommunication is because we have 2 human beings, 3, 5, whatever it, right, coming at it. I think miscommunication is often more common. Does that make sense? I'm like, I think miscommunication
Yeah.
happens quite a bit. And if we think of that more as normal instead of wrong, that's a
Mm.
reframe as well. Oh, here we are. We're talking about something and we're coming at it from different angles. One other
Mm.
tool,
Yeah,
yeah, another
I like
tool
that.
for when you were talking about, I'm going to start with the why, is we talk about the flip the bang, which is putting the main thing first that that person needs to hear. It's very relational. What does that person need to hear first? Do they need to hear, I want to reassure you we have everything under control? Or do they need to hear first, you're right, some things have gone wrong. We're missing some key items that we ordered, whatever it is. What do they need first? Because we're different. So trying to figure out what they need to hear first and then drop into the detail. We
Mm.
sometimes think we need to be logical or the way we would write an essay. This is the order of things I need to say instead of what does that person need first and then follow. So flip, put the key thing first. Could be the end in mind, could be the finding, could be the problem, could be the reassurance, could be a money issue. You can take all those different things we've learned. Don't bury the lead, like all those different things.
Yeah.
And that's what counterintuitively, you start with that, then we build trust, then they aren't waiting for the shoe to drop, that kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. What do they need to hear first? Because many times being the, type A or just being the type of that event professionals are, we need what we need it now.
Mhm.
So many times just putting yourself in another person's shoes, what do they need to hear first? Do they need to be comforted
Right.
about a deadline that I'm approaching? Let's get all that out of the way first so that they can truly hear
Right.
what I have to say and what I need from them. And then they're more likely to give you what you want or to be a little bit more transparent with you with
Yeah.
the thing that you actually want to.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that.
Yeah. We sometimes talk about, I learned it from a client. They go, "Yeah, we don't like long runways." I love that phrase. So long runways, we're kinda like, "Where's the" you know? Classic example is, "Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for showing up." Like, we do all this stuff. Instead, they
Mhm,
need to hear, "Yep, we're having this conversation because there was a problem. Let's talk about it." Right? They need you to start versus, yeah, because the runway usually makes us feel better, doesn't make them feel
mhm,
better. So figuring out,
yeah,
because comfort is not comforting. When I was thinking, when you mentioned comforting, comforting is not necessarily a runway at all if it's what they need to hear. If we're comforting because we need it, that's different. That's a runway. If we're comforting because they need it, which as event planners, you all know that you're like, oh, I gotta help this person understand I still have everything under control, right? We got it.
mhm,
The event's still gonna happen.
yeah,
We got it. We got this. This is what I
we got
do.
it.
Trust me. This is what I do for a living. I'm really good at this. I want you to, yeah. Yeah. So that's a different
Yeah,
tone.
it also makes me think just personally, when you get that phone call from either a school or from your partner, and you just think something's wrong. So immediately, I know my husband, he always says, everything's okay. The girls are good. And then he goes into something,
Yeah.
whatever he needs from me. It just really helps me not to have my brain go off thinking the worst has
That's a
happened,
perfect
right?
example.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
That's great.
so when it comes to leading, I think that this also can really help us with leadership
Mhm.
and people that we may have to report to. Everyone talks about managing upward.
Mhm.
I feel like what you've provided and the tools that you provided will help in that because you want to have a relationship with your leader and be transparent with them when you're trying to have that conversation around maybe
Yeah.
expectations or maybe our workload and maybe the fact that we do not see us being able to get through that
Yeah.
workload. How can one manage upward effectively, or do you have a reframe for that as well?
You know, I think that that idea of what do they need to hear first? Usually the I know we want level playing fields, but usually there's a hierarchy. So if we're managing up, right, it seems higher and higher we go, less and less time, or they feel like there's less time, right? So
Mm,
being succinct, putting that bang first, this is about, and trusting
mhm,
that the relationship details will come in. They'll relax. If they know you're prepared for the conversation, this is exactly what I need to talk about. That
mhm,
managing up is honoring their time, being succinct. They'll ask for more detail if they need it in that certain area. And so the flip the
mm,
bang is one of the most succinct manners of getting to what they need to hear. And when we're nervous, which most of us are nervous at some point during our workday, right? When we're nervous,
mhm,
we start extending our runway, we we laugh, we do all kinds of weird things that are not about clarity. And the
mm,
etch a sketch is a great tool with leadership. Just a second. I'm going to etch a sketch. I'm going to start again. We have a problem with the client. Like, right? Like, it's like
yeah,
immediately when you're managing up, if you clear it, if you've started off on the wrong foot or, right, all those things, there's like, oh, it's extra awkward. You can reset. I'm going to start again. Here's what we need to talk about. And trusting that that builds trust, it is
mhm,
awkward, and it respects the relationship and the time that we have there. So, boom.
mm.
Yeah,
I
that
love that.
yeah.
So it's bringing up something else, though. It's bringing up
Oh,
procrastination
yeah. Yeah.
and working through the procrastination that one may have,
Yeah,
because I've seen it a lot in this field where, and everybody does it, right? They have this big thing that they have to
right,
do, and there's something either wrong with the thing, maybe they're intimidated about it,
right.
maybe they feel like they cannot do it, and so it just sits there.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, client is needing all these things.
right.
How does someone get through their procrastination quicker? Do you have any tips for that when it comes to communicating how where they are?
Yes, to themselves, right, first,
Mhm.
communicating to themselves. So,
Well, yeah, you have to tell yourself something first, yeah, before you move
yeah,
on. Mhm.
that that sci-fi thing, right, self-aware, so I'm aware I'm not moving on it, and I think those sci-fi conversations with
Mhm.
yourself have to have a lot of compassion around them. "Oh, look at that.
Mm,
I am not doing that. What is going on?" And being able to have a sci-fi conversation with yourself is important. So I'm self-aware, being
mhm,
curious, so what is going on there? And then, oh, intentionality. So the tools when we get to intentionality, and I'm not an expert on procrastination, connecting, I know there are different reasons
mhm,
we procrastinate. When it's connected to relationship and taking action, that idea
mhm,
of being intentional with it and owning the awkward, owning that I'm backing off, and asking for guidance, for help. I am recognizing that I am
yeah,
not moving forward on this because I'm missing, after we do our self-awareness piece, I'm missing this, and I'm missing this, and I'm missing this. I'm missing the information on this. I am realizing I think I've got a lot of self-judgment, negative judgment on that, that I should know that or should have that information. And each of those
mhm,
pieces, when we are able to go inside, figure it out, and then I come to you now and I'm like, this is what's going on. Then I build trust because
mm,
I have that relationship. You understand I'm being completely transparent with you. And then I get the guidance from you. I do think we have to have those confidants, those folks like,
yeah,
I'm assuming you're that for people, Naomi. Hey, Naomi, can I just run this by you? Because I'm not moving forward on
that you
this.
can, yeah.
Yeah, right. You are
Mhm,
that for people. I think we need that in professions where we have a lot of customer client interaction that
mhm,
has a lot of actions connected to it, and the procrastination being one of them. Go inside, but
yeah,
then I need one more step before I go to the customer or the client or the boss or the manager or whatever on that. I need a Naomi moment. I'm just gonna call it a Naomi moment, okay? So I need a moment to talk to
that works.
you and say, "This is what's going on," and then it's like a little bit of a stepping stone in the middle of a river. So I'm not doing it, I
Mm,
look at it, I need to step there, get my grounding before I fully cross. That's my thought on
Mm.
procrastination and having those key people.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up because, like you said, the tool definitely helps in that situation too. And it makes me even think of overwhelm. You can use it in that situation too,
Yeah.
because event professionals struggle a lot with overwhelm.
Mhm.
So and I talk about where all the time, but I do love just remembering sci-fi, right?
Yeah,
Let's be aware of what I'm going through right now. Something's going on. How can I manage through it? And really having someone to reach out to help you kind of, like you said,
yeah,
cross that river. So you can use that in so many different situations. So
yeah.
it's a great tool.
Like, I was just thinking, "Why am I craving another bag of potato chips? Like, what is going on?" Like, right? Like, self-aware, and then I'm curious, like, "What's going on?" Because it is funny the things that we do, like, "Oh, the dog needs another walk," or whatever it is, right? You're like all those things, you're like, "Wait a minute, really?" So that sci-fi helps with that, and then be intentional. Let me call my line, my lifeline, right? I'm gonna call my lifeline and check in before I yeah, get back on track.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those lifelines are definitely crucial. And I've had several different people that I worked with that felt like they could not talk to
Yeah.
anyone regarding their situation. And so they ended up just either leaving or
Yeah.
just taking matter into their own hands and making a very big decision. One that I would think that probably could have been
Oh,
different should they have had a lifeline. So I love that you bring that up, whether it's a best friend at work, whether it's a coach, whether it's someone that you're close to.
yeah.
I think that that's very important to just bounce off
Yeah.
someone so that they can help get you through.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
That
awesome.
relationship,
Uh,
right? Relationships are so important. Yeah, and working on that, working on them is
yeah,
important. Yeah.
exactly. So, this I always love to highlight stories, not highlight, but have whoever comes on the show really talk about a situation that they maybe had gone through either overwhelm, high stress, or even a burnout situation.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you, I know that you're not an expert on burnout, but I do believe that we always connect to other people's stories, and there might be just something that you say that might be able to help someone else that
Yeah.
might be going through something. Would you care to share like
Yeah.
a situation? Share as much as
Yeah.
little as you would like.
The one that came to mind oh, we'll see. It just came to mind. Let's see if it's like, "Oh my gosh, it had to do with me and my team. And with my
Mhm.
team, I had adopted some of the Brene Brown ideas. Love Brene Brown, sociologist, fantastic.
Yes, me too.
And I resonated with one of her tools, and I wasn't necessarily, correctly calibrated to use the tool, which was the rumble, right? So the rumble was one of her tools to work things out, and I've thought about this a lot. I'm gonna go backwards in time. So as a child, I
Mhm.
was and I think we chatted a little bit about this when we were chatting before, as I was called the whistle on the tea kettle. So I had a family that suppressed a lot of emotions, didn't talk about things. There was a lot of depression, all kinds of illness going on. And when we went to family therapy, oversharing, delightful. I'm oversharing. And I went to family therapy. And as a little kid, I was praised for being the whistle on the tea kettle, which meant I expressed my emotions. Then we fast forward, great as an actor, right? That can be a good thing, right? Not necessarily always great in all my friendships and relationships because I was still going on the site. It's a good thing that I express big emotions, whether it's joy or rage or whatever,
Yeah.
like everything coming out. I'm on the whistle on the tea kettle. I let you know what's going on, right? And so then I fast forward, fast forward, fast forward. So it helped in the career. It helped me in coaching people. I was able to hold a lot of space. Those high school students, I was able to hold a lot of space for people because I understood big emotions, right? All of that's working. And then I'm a boss or part of a team and resonating with this concept of big emotions uh,
Mm.
with the Brene Brown ideas, right? The rumble. The piece I was missing was regulation, right? So regulating. And the reason I bring this to the story in my journey as being important is that w- we tend to like calm and we tend to be drawn to calm. And when I try to be calm, the way I'm wired, I shut it down and it squirts out other places, right? It does,
Oh,
right? I'm not being calm. I mean, sometimes I am. Right now, I'm learning how to regulate as a fiery person with big emotions and feeling things big and moving through the turbulence, right?
mhm,
What I have now learned and would have been different with a group that I had as a team before is I've learned more about regulation and regulating my emotions, which I know they work with kids a lot on, right? Not suppressing them, but learning what they are and understanding how to navigate them. So when I have found where passion coming in, learning that even my affirmative, what I think is affirmative passion can scare people away. It's like, whoa, that's a lot. Right. And so figuring out what that regulation means and regulating it is also what I translate to work with others. So some people have, I grew up near the water. So I will say a boat analogy. They have a deep keel. Some boats have this deep
mhm.
keel that drops into the water and they maneuver through stormy water without much
Yeah.
rocking and rolling. Some of you might have
Mhm.
been on boats that are much better when there's calm water. And anytime it's rough, they're like rocking all over. That would
Yes.
be me. I do not have a deep keel in that way. So I'm like riding like this. So for me to
Mhm.
learn how to navigate rough waters, allowing transparency, self aware, being curious what's happening with all of those, then I'm able to support leaders to be if
Mhm.
they're fiery. It means that I believe in emotional intelligence not being about learning to, because we seem to have emotional intelligence on one side and keeping people calm on the other. And I want them to come together. And I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying that when we use things quickly, we don't dive into the real nuances of
Mhm.
it. And so for me, I've been working with some fabulous fiery leaders who've been told they have to keep calm. And I'm like, let's, instead of trying to calm you, let's have you be regulating and transparent. If you're transparent with your
Yeah.
team, this is what's going on with me. Then we're able to use the differences in all of the people effectively. We want
Mhm.
leaders to not, we don't want just calm leaders. We want leaders with all
Yeah.
different emotional permutations, stages to come through. So what I have learned from my journey, and still am working on it because I ask my team now, I am I feel things deeply, affirmatively and negatively. I'm a fiery person. I'm in, if we go with the signs, I'm an Aries, right? I'm like coming in hot. That idea of learning that I can name it, I can be aware of it, I cannot let it I can be aware of the becauses so it doesn't become anybody else's fault. It's just me and where I am. I let you know, Naomi, I'm having a fiery day. Here we come. Then we have that clarity. So I'm not done with my
Yeah.
learning at all. I'm still on this journey. And I want to make sure that we are, from little kids to adults, being careful when we tell people to calm down, that we're not asking them to suppress who they are. Instead, we're asking them to regulate so we can connect. That's my passion
Yes.
story.
I thank you so much. Like, you said a whole word there. I loved it. And just about when you said, I keep myself calm, maybe I'm paraphrasing, you're keeping yourself calm, but then it maybe be squirting out the other
Yeah.
side. That's sometimes what you want to nurture, right? To have them be calm, but then also be expressive and also be transparent.
Yeah.
And just being authentic to who they are
Yeah.
and becoming more aware about their thoughts and their feelings and how it makes an impact on them and how it makes an impact on the world. And that it's just awesome because sometimes calmness can be very passive,
Yeah.
right? To the point where leaders will just say,
Mhm.
"Oh, we're going to give that all to her because she can get through it. She can do it. She'll take it, take it, take it, take it." And then that person 6 months later, they leave.
Right?
Well, something was happening,
Yes.
right? Despite that person being calm,
Yeah.
there's something that's happening deep
Yeah.
there
Hmm.
that, that leader did not uncover or did not address or didn't allow space for.
Yes.
And I think that that's very important when it comes to leadership because it can have its positive effects, but then also you want to make sure that you're bring making space for the other elements of that person.
Yeah.
So,
That was yeah, you wove that into a profound lesson. Yes. Yes, yes. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I keep also thinking about my daughter too because she is fiery, and, many times as a parent, you wanna just say, "Calm
Yeah.
down." But I have caught myself that is a lesson that I learned way
Yeah.
early that I just want her to be able to be herself and be expressive, so I'm just different about how I approach it
Yeah.
now instead of having her diminish herself. I think that's really important to
Yeah.
let her be who she is, you
Yeah.
know? If she's gonna be an amazing leader, let her get some practice now.
Right. The diminish, that's an important word you tossed in there, right? That is what it can feel like, that diminishing. Yes. Yes.
Mhm,
And trying to dim the light, trying to dim the energy, trying to fit in, not offend, not make people
mhm,
all those things. Squish. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. Yes.
I love it. So, thank you. This has been great. You've given us some tools to help us effectively communicate. And yeah, I'm just really, really happy that you came on the podcast and so thankful. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners before we wrap up today?
Thank you. I liked our pre-conversation and now even more here. So thank you for being amazing at your conversations. And I love people to know that I and my team, but we love to work with teams on diving in and figuring out how to help that individuality show up. How do we let people be themselves with their quirkiness, their sharpness, their whatever? And
Mhm.
I love having those conversations. You just wanna have a conversation about it? I'm happy to connect anywhere, LinkedIn, whatever. I love to have those conversations. Email me, say, "Hey, can I talk about my team?" Yes, I love doing that. How do we help people work together to move I say, get out of spin and move forward. Yeah,
Great. Well, thank you. I'll make sure to leave all of Hillary's links in the
cool.
comments of this episode, wherever you're listening to it. And I appreciate you being here. Before you leave, Hillary, I did have a few quick
Okay.
questions. It's kind of rapid fire
Alright.
segment. You don't really know what questions that I'm going to throw at you, but I can assure you they're very
Okay.
nice. Uh,
Alright.
so, are you
I'm
ready
ready,
for this
I
quick?
think.
So the first one is, what would be a book that you can recommend to somebody who wants to improve their communication?
Ah, wow. I do think Phew, so many. I do think that the books by David Dye and Karen Hurt are really good. So they have a number of them. And yeah, and they have a new one coming out, which is What to Say in Challenging Conversation. I'm not getting the title right. It's their brand new book coming out. I
Okay.
just love their work. I also think I
Mhm.
am a Brene Brown fan because I like that she lets us drop into awkwardness and shame and humanness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we have a book. Of course, I have a book too, but I'm a fan of those others. So yeah, great.
Okay. What is your book called,
So,
by the way?
I know it's, I don't what is the title? Communication in the workplace. So using the
Okay.
yeah. So it's about communicating using the art.
Perfect.
Yes. But that's not it. I am actually yeah, the others are awesome. Great.
Okay. Awesome. I'll make sure to link those. Now, have you taken aha moments from the audiences that you present to? And if so, like, what's your most memorable aha moment that you've received when you've been presenting?
I just had one with a group of college students, grad students. I have them all the time. Recently with a grad student who said, "Our generation wants to hear more personal about you." That was my aha. I was like, "What?" Because I'm an actor, I ooze too much personal most of the time, and I think I've learned to not overshare me, and that was my aha. They wanted to know more about me personally. I thought
Yeah.
that was
Yeah. I mean, it is. It can be hard for us, right, Hillary, to do that because I think we've, grown up doing the complete opposite.
totally,
But
totally.
yeah,
Yes. Yep. That was my
note to
aha. Note
self
to
from
self,
college.
exactly. Generational differences and yeah. And
Yeah.
she was even military trained, right? So it wasn't so there were some biases that would have thought no, right? And it's like, "No, I wanna know more about you."
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. It's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
So lastly, I have is what is we love traveling in
Oh,
event profession. So where is a place that's on your bucket list to travel to next?
I just checked off my 50th state. So I just went to Alaska,
Oh,
and that has been on my bucket list for a long time, and I just got back a couple days ago, or just got back. I was there,
really?
and, so
Oh,
I got to my
cool.
50th state, so Alaska was on my bucket list. You know what?
That's
I love
awesome.
going to s to other areas of states other than the main area that most of
Mhm.
us go to because I like meeting people in their hometown and where they are all across the US. And well, I across the globe, anywhere in the world. But I was thinking, I
Mhm.
keep getting delighted by going to towns outside of the main where I fly in, right? And meeting
Yeah.
people. I can I'm constantly just like, oh, and have ahas and delighted in those subtle differences in all of us. I love that. Yeah, I have so many of those stories. So that's my bucket list, keep going to the smaller towns, not the big towns. But except I like
Awesome.
the big
That's a
towns,
really good tip too for travel.
right?
So I love it. Thank you so much for
Mm,
just for sharing and letting us know a little bit more about you. Again, just appreciate having your expertise here and helping us to communicate clearly to our leaders and to our teams, especially in areas that we struggle with. And I feel like after this conversation, you've made it a bit easier
mm,
for all of us. So I appreciate you being on the podcast and I'm looking forward to connecting soon again in the future. Thank you so much, Hillary.
thank you, thank you. Keep rocking. Thank you.
Thank you.